So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this webinar, which is being hosted by the Green Building Council Mauritius. This is our second webinar this year. In May, we had a webinar on health and well-being, and it was rethinking the built environment. A special thank you to our speakers who are joining us from Mauritius, Kenya, and Singapore. And some quick housekeeping for the participants. Please mute yourselves if you're not muted already, and we would appreciate if you would switch off your video. For any questions and comments, please use the chat feature. We will answer them at the end of the session. All right, so I'm presuming everybody can hear me well. So I'll just carry on. So today we're going to talk about how we can move towards a green economic recovery for the real estate sector. Building back better. The COVID-19 pandemic has put the world in a turmoil. People, economies, and the planet are suffering from its consequences. What will governments and private sector do to stimulate rebuild economies? How will we bring back jobs that have been lost? How will we fight climate change during this crisis? Can we afford to continue on the same path of doing business? Crisis brings devastation, but it also brings an opportunity to reevaluate what kind of future we want to create. To answer these questions and others, we have with us 4 experts. Ms. Abadu is an architect and has over 25 years of experience working in the public sector. Welcome. Okay, I think you can't hear me, so I'm going to try and use the mic. Yes. Can you all hear me now? Mrs. Amadu, can you hear me?
Yeah, but it kind of waves.
Let me see. Sorry about this.
Yeah, now it's better.
Is it better? Is it better now?
No.
Now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I was introducing you. Mrs. Abadu is an architect and has over 25 years of experience working in public sector. Dr. Riyad Sultan is a senior lecturer at the university. Has contributed to several. Dr. Sultan, you can switch on your camera. He has contributed to several pioneering studies on the green economy sector. Hello. Most recently,
hi everyone. Very good morning.
Good. He has completed an assessment on green jobs analysis, and this is a project with the ILO organization. Thank you. Mr. Vincent Kitio is an expert from UN Habitat, Kenya.
Yes, good morning, Jaya. Yes.
Good morning.
Greeting from Nairobi.
Thank you. Greetings from Mauritius. Mr. Kitio leads the Urban Energy Solutions Project at UN Habitat. He develops and implements regional energy programs in Africa. He was a major contributor to the publication Sustainable Building Design for Tropical Climates, published in 2014. Thank you, Vincent. Ms. Esther Ann.
Thank you.
Is an expert in sustainable real estate development. Hello, Esther. You're muted, Esther. You're muted. I can't hear you.
Yeah, it's all right. Hi. Greeting from Singapore, and thank you for having me. Yeah.
Great, nice to have you. Thank you. Esther is an expert in sustainable real estate development, working at City Developments Limited in Singapore as the Chief Sustainability Officer. She has been very active and an active advocate for green building and sustainability for over 2 decades. All right, we shall now proceed to the questions. Speakers, you have each 3 minutes to answer. So move on. Any questions before that, before I start? Okay, so the first question is, what is your opinion? What, in your opinion, is the real estate sector outlook currently, and what will it be post-COVID? So I'll give everyone a chance to answer. Maybe we can start with Mrs. Apadu.
Yeah, hello. Thank you, Jaya. And good morning to everyone. Yeah, we know how COVID-19 has come without warning. And what started late last year in December 2019 as just a respiratory issue in China suddenly became a pandemic, So that really happened very fast. It was in I think on 11th of March this year when the WHO declared it a pandemic, and Mauritius closed down suddenly, just like that, on the 19th of March. It really came without warning, and nobody really had a chance to know what to do and what not to do. So all construction projects, all construction sites were shut down, how it was. And of course, the one that was most affected is the worker who's getting his wages on a daily basis. So we know how that went about. And of course, the government came in with some packages to help the needy and all that. And communities, of course, they got around and understood how to really work at the local grassroots levels, to help the most vulnerable around in their neighborhoods and communities. So in the construction sector now, if you look into that, luckily for Mauritius, this was a very short period of time. We were able to open up in June, which doesn't happen in most of the countries. We know quite a few countries are having the second wave now. So Mauritius has been very lucky. Being a small isolated island, it has been able to control. But on the other hand, we know that the construction sector, it imports most of its, materials and all, except of course the ones that we get in Mauritius, the blocks and the rock sand and things like that. But most of the things are imported, and that does affect our construction sector a lot. Our timelines have been crashed. Our construction completion dates have been missed. And of course, the public sector, we have taken off again after 3 months delay. All our projects are still on, and in that case, it's fine. But I think it is a private sector that is more affected, where certain private owners cannot really go ahead with their projects, and things are not the same. I think in those terms, the government has taken a good stand. I see from the budget debates that were held, I saw that our Minister of National Infrastructure, he has said that it is the building sector that is going to really push the economy. So as we know, it employed some 120,000 workers, representing about 22% of the total labor force in 2019, and it contributed 9.7% to the GDP. So it has a major role, of course, to play in economic recovery. And so it's good that this year we have about 40 billion Mauritian rupees. That's about $1 billion US of public infrastructure projects that are going on. And of course, they include all kinds of road development, flyovers, our metro projects, and there's also, I see, a dam which is to be constructed in Rizongi. There's the completion of the metro from Rosehill to Kirpe, urban terminals, and all those things, And of course, at our level, at the Ministry of National Infrastructure, we normally per year have about 250 to 300 projects that we deal with, and that amounts to about 1 billion in the budget. So those projects are also on, and of course, all these activity in the construction sector will create jobs down the supply line for other people also to come in. Yeah. And then maybe a new reality with the COVID is that we need quarantine centers, and then we have to appreciate social distancing and the sanitary conditions. So during the lockdown period, our architects were going down to, you know, those centers which were to become quarantine centers and ensuring that, you know, all these measures were taken care of, and the buildings were well maintained, a good state of upkeep, had natural light and ventilation, you know, because the air quality is important now, had the right standard of cleanliness. And these kind of things are what are at the top of our mind now. So, and that is still going on. It started recently again because Mauritius is now thinking of opening up. So we will need much more buildings that will be converted into quarantine centers. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Gurinder, for that. It's also interesting to know that we are, you know, have a lot of infrastructure projects actually in Mauritius, as you rightly mentioned. So that's great. Okay, I'd like to move on to Dr. Riyad Sultan about the same question. So what in your opinion, the real estate sector outlook currently, and what will it be post-COVID?
Yeah, thank you, Jia, and thank you, Mrs. Badu, for that very good introduction. I would start this like the discussion on the importance of the construction sector in the economy, the conventional economic approach of looking at construction, and you might have come across that construction is strongly related to the rate of economic growth. And that is quite consistent in most, worldwide in many countries, except in some countries that are really advanced and are really concentrated on the services sector. But the construction sector is an important component of what is called the total investment in a country. You know, the figure is called the gross domestic fixed capital formation. And on average in the world, that is around 50%. Vehicles and plant and machinery occupies the remaining. So construction always remain an important, a key role in economic development. And you would always find that when there is a slowing down of the construction sector, its impact on economic growth is always felt. And you see that it's not about, because we're talking about an economic growth of 3%, of 4%, of 5%. And when the construction sector slowed down in many parts of the world, usually on average, you find the growth rate may turn from 4 to 3, and it is really visible. And when the construction sector start moving up, you find an increase in economic growth. The rate goes up. So that is a very important that many economists, in like the Mauritian case, we understand that construction is important. And so the fact is now when we talk about construction, we need really to understand the what is called the record data purpose and construction in theory, construction in practice. So when we talk about construction, you know, the figure that is published in statistics statistical office around the world, that is where we take it from the system of national accounts, you know, this which is pioneered and promoted by the United Nations. And that is where the construction is inside what is called the product, the final output. But construction is much bigger than that. If you take it from the process of raw materials to the transportation to when you take it from a life cycle approach, the sector is much, much bigger, which means that its key role is not only on the final output, but also on the different process. So that's that's why the focus on the recovery, you know, post lockdown. I would wish to say post COVID, but we are still, so we say post lockdown in many countries. You know, the first thing that comes in mind is the construction sector. And why is that? It's on the first side. Usually the construction sector is motivated, is the engine, you know, of growth coming from the private sector. But when we are inside a pandemic, when we face a crisis, we face a recession, you know, caused by certain exogenous factors, the private sector have a tendency to slow down a little bit, which is fair, which is quite understandable. And which party should take the lead? It is the government. So that is the essence of the policy, that in many countries government is putting more emphasis in the construction sector to start the engine, to drive that post lockdown inside the pandemic, to keep that economy stable as far as possible. So that construction is always important for economic development and will be important for the recovery. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Riyad. Thank you for that. We'll move on to Vincent.
Thank you. I just want to thank the Mauritius Green Building Council for inviting you and Habitat to this important debate that is taking place in the transition from the COVID period to the post-COVID recovery period. I wish you agree with all the previous speaker that have raised, that have explained the impact, the negative impact of the lockdown that we have experienced. I think I will call it globally, because in Africa, the impact was very, very devastating, particularly in the urban sector. As you know, UN Habitat is the United Nations agency that is in charge of promoting sustainable urbanization and also adequate shelter for all. Basically, what we have seen in different cities in Africa is the same thing has happened also in other sort of developing countries, whereby the lockdown has actually deprivated the laborer and the workers that are the majority of the urban citizens that normally live in informal settlement. Suddenly, with the social distancing, they have to stay at home because the government has given strict instruction that they should not see a gathering of more than 10 people in one place. And in some places, big real estate should not have more than 50 workers. So construction real estate. So you can understand what was the impact, the social impact. And those people who are earning just daily earning, they were now confined in their neighborhood and they could not earn a living. And that's why also some voluntaries came in, some donors came in to provide food relief to those workers. So it has really been a difficult situation. At the same time, it also impacted a lot negatively on the economy. I fully agree on the fact that the construction sector is actually the driver of the economy, because that is where the majority of people are employed. That is also where the most of the money is invested from the procurement of the material to the construction of the housing. So basically, it has really been a very difficult situation. When the government started opening up the lockdown, we noticed that a lot of workers actually went back to the rural area where they came from, because basically contractors has closed down their site, that construction site, and then so those who could travel back home, they left the country. So they left the cities. They moved from the urban area to rural area. Now gradually, because the fear in Africa was very high, the percentage of the fear, because nobody knew, and we were all seeing the images from Europe, from Brazil, and we really thought that we were also going to witness a lot of tragedy in informal settlement. And therefore, everybody, also the government, also tried to start putting in place measures where they were distributing sanitary equipment, washing hands, and all this, whatever they could do to prevent. So now that they realize that the pandemic did not take certain proportion, they started now opening up the economy, and also the curfew that was actually from 5 a.m. in the morning to 6 p.m. in the evening was also reduced, was extended to 9 p.m. So places were now opening. So we are now seeing people going back. We are now seeing a construction site opening up. And this, we believe that it's going to get the economic back on track. Of course, one of the issues that I wish also to bring here is that the title of this webinar is Building Back Better. I think this is the opportunity, this is the real time, this is the occasion. I mean, if COVID has learn us, has teach us a lesson, is that we need to do better now. We need to, because we have seen with the lockdown how the air, the pollution were also locked down, were reduced, and the economy now need to, as we are starting new reconstruction, the government need to really take the issue of sustainable buildings and building green, which was already there as part of the solution to climate change. I think this is the time now to really adopt the sustainability in the building construction, because we also noticed that some of the problems that were related to pollution has also been sort of slowed down. So it's better that we really walk the talk, as we normally say in the green building sector, because sustainability in the construction, the talk of the sustainability in the construction has been there even before. SDG 11, that is on city, really put emphasis on that, and even the SDG on the consumption and production really put emphasis on the circular economy. So this is the time to really adopt that, apply this, and it is our responsibility to tell the government, show the government how to do this. And in some places, the government is already aware. They know that there is no other way. We need to build back, but better, applying sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you, Vincent. You rightly said that the construction sector is the driver of the economy, actually. Investing in existing and new construction buildings kickstart the economy with job creation and stimulate demand for that's quite correct. And yes, we must build back better. So I will give the mic now to Esther to have her views on this particular question. So please go
Hi.
ahead.
Okay, I think definitely the whole world has been impacted, by the pandemic. It has changed the way we live, work, travel, and even manage the business. And now businesses, well, if I can, just share that in Singapore, we are still by default working from home. And there are a lot of safety measure has been progressively relaxing, but like dining out, we only allow 5 people in the same table, and the social distancing of 1 meter is still very strong, and wearing a mask is a mandatory, safety measure. So definitely our mindset and our behavior have changed a lot. Just to put the context to what I'm going to share is a little bit of the core business about our company, City Developments Limited. CTL is actually a listed developer, headquarters in Singapore, but we have presence and operations in 29 countries. Our core business including building residential home, building office space, and also a leading landlord in Singapore. We also have 150 over hotels worldwide. So as a provider of living, working, and entertainment space, shopping malls, and F&B outlets and hotels and all that, definitely our business has been affected. And building sector is much broader than just, construction is one big area of building sector. But don't forget that average people spend about 90% indoor. So whether you are in the sector or not, you are affected by real estate. You spend most of your waking hour, or even the sleeping hours in at home or at work, at malls and schools and all that. So how we design, how we build, and how we manage the buildings have been drastically affected by COVID. And when we talk about green building in the past, energy efficiencies, is always the top priority. It is still very important, but now when we deal with the tenants, they are all very concerned about the health and the well-being. The condition of the building, whether the air quality is good, IAQ, indoor air quality, the filter, is it working well? Are they safe to come back to work? So all these are very immediate, issues of, man in the street. People just come to work. They may not look at the big picture of the economy, but they look at the day-to-day, am I safe to go out and eat? Am I safe to take public transport? And now I think the last time we give a hug to your friends or shake hands and all that, I think it was probably February. And so I mean, our whole mentality has changed. And I have people who come into the lift and then go out because there are more than 5 people. So I think people are getting a little bit very cautious, and some even a little bit more paranoia. So as a space provider like us, how do we build, how do we design, and how do we build a home that is for multi-purpose? I mean, we have spent last 6 months working from home. So can our home, be too small and too, we can't really provide, space for, families to actually work from home. And this is also very important. And we need some communal space, also community space, landscape is also very important. Singapore is very small and it's hot through the year, So how do we provide, solace to, residents, and provide more landscaping, provide garden space, provide, even like herbal farming and all that for people to really mingle, and rather than being so, antisocial, just locked down, in your house. So I think there are a lot of things that we are looking at right now, and you need to reimagine your whole business model, and how we design, how we build, how we manage, and how we engage, our tenants, our home users are also very important. And of course, a lot of people's livelihood have been affected. Tenants are not doing well. I mean, for retail business, they have closed for months and then only recently, just opened. So as landlord, how do we help, tenants to recover better? And we are not just, hand over the the government relief package or the return the tax rebate to them, but we also want to work with the tenants that how do they look at the future business model in to survive in the long term in the new normal, because the government relief will stop. So how are you going to survive? And a lot of people's lifestyle has changed. Shopping is like, I mean, Singapore is a shopping paradise. Everybody loves to shop. But now because of the lockdown, online shopping is very, very, popular. But we still need to look at how do we design, shopping mall that will really bring back people to shopping, to really contribute to the economy, and how do we attract back, tourists to come to, Singapore after once we are open, when the travel ban is relaxed. So there are a lot of, reimagination. How do we expand the use of hotel spaces? That can help to bring back revenues to the hotel operations. There are just too many things that we never imagined before COVID. So I think this is also a good opportunity for us to review and reset the business model. And green recovery is only one part of it. Definitely, climate change is here to stay. Climate change, threats and definitely is very devastating. While even after COVID, we find solution, we find vaccine for COVID, climate change will continue to be a big, a huge threat for humanity, which I can share a little bit more later on. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Esther. And you rightly said about health and well-being, about indoor air quality. These are very important aspects now that we have gone through COVID. So thank you for mentioning those. All right, I will go on to the next question. Again, it's directed to all of you. So whoever wants to go first, or we can go in the same order, that's fine. What would a green economic recovery look like for the real estate sector? So what would be the green economic recovery for that particular sector? Mrs. Apadu?
Yeah. Yeah, so maybe I need to put the video on. I don't see it. Sorry. Yeah. All right. Yeah, so when we're talking about green economy recovery, it would mean to me that buildings have now to be built for more resilience given the challenges of the pandemic. And of course, like Esther was just saying, we need to build against climate change because climate change is here to stay. And we need to reduce the carbon footprint of our buildings. So if we look at our existing buildings that we have, we need to relook the environments, we need to renovate and retrofit, because now even like buildings that are maybe oversized to the new context because people are working from home. And we need to rethink our office spaces. Do we need those large offices? We need to rethink our records, registries. Do we need to keep them like that? Or we need to move on with e-filing, And we are in e-conferencing age, so that would also reduce on our transport costs. So all these things need to be taken into consideration. Basically, we are developing a new guideline. It's like we are having new parameters now to design with, and all this fit well with the green buildings that we've been talking about since so long, And now we really see the urgency and the need to go in that direction. So while we are renovating our buildings, we need to think about making them into, healthy buildings, not moving out of that sick building syndrome. So we need to monitor the indoor environmental quality and the thermal comfort levels. We need to integrate more of green spaces, as such. We could, when we're talking infrastructural projects also, we have so many, like I was just saying earlier, projects of roads and metros and all these that are coming up now. So all these projects, we need to include and integrate landscaping into that, because you are taking away so much of our green spaces when we're constructing all these, and there is a lot of pollution which is related to the construction industry. So we really need those green lungs around in our buildings, all in our communities, in our towns and cities. So that becomes very integral part of our new way of building. I also wanted to say that, when you have, even in our small projects, when we're doing a school project, if you're renovating a toilet, for example, we could renovate the open spaces. We have already started, of course, converting all those hard tarmac surfaces into softer finishes. All these things help a lot in the environment, and also in better use of the spaces. Another thing is that landscaping, is something which is very labor intensive. Maintenance is very labor intensive. So we need to create more jobs for this. And this is going to really keep our buildings and environments clean and happier, and we will be healthier and more productive in the environment. And at the same time, it will also be creating jobs. So now on the other side, when we are designing our buildings, we have been since quite a few years now, taking care of things like passive solar design strategies. We think about how to protect our windows and how to design our spaces. We have been integrating rainwater harvesting. Maybe now we need to also go think about more about green roofs. We have been thinking about cool roofs. So all these things, maybe we need to do it in a more structured manner. And these will create, of course, new markets. It's easy, I mean, since quite some time we have been just talking about these things at a more maybe superficial level, or a more theoretical level. Whereas now is the time and the urgency and the opportunity, in fact, to move into really putting these things in place. And we have seen, how the climate has been regenerated during this few months of lockdown all around the world. We've seen a lot of videos are in circulation. We see how you have wild animals moving around the streets. You have mountain peaks which were not visible, like in India, snow-peaked mountains of Himalayas were never visible in the area, and suddenly in North India, people start seeing mountains and say, wow, all my life I never saw this. And pollution levels have gone down. So, and if we also think, I think one is that nature has the power to regenerate itself, and it can be done. That is one reality that we know now. So the sooner we move into green buildings, it will bring a very fast change, which will be to all our advantage. And also, sorry, I was just thinking of the same thing again, how nature regenerates itself in the same way. If we could put in our efforts, I'm sure that would bring about a change very fast. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Apadu. Few things that you mentioned are very important about the jobs. What jobs can be created with going towards a green economic recovery. That's very important. And the opportunity to build back better. Also, you talked about that nature can regenerate itself. I think that's really, we've been able to see that with while we were on lockdown. So that's a very valid point. Thank you for that. All right, we'll go to Riyadh.
Yes. Sure. I think we have very good points from the Mrs. Apadu. Just to build on the many benefits of a green recovery. But before that, as I said, the construction is one of the most important sectors where it's forward and backward linkages are very, very strong, which means in economic jargon, we call it multiplier, which means that if we are investing 1 rupee in that sector, it creates indirect output in the economy. Between inverted commas, if we are importing, it also has some negative implication, economic implication. But we have a very strong multiplier effect because the number of activities that are involved with the sector is very, very big. Now, the second point is about that green recovery, what the green building, green landscaping and construction. And here I would wish to mention some of the benefits, the many benefits that can be achieved from the transition to the green construction or green building. So first thing is we are trying to remedy a very important problem that we have created, is to separate nature from man-made capital. So what we are doing is we are trying to fit in our invention, our man-made capital in nature, because nature, it comes first, and what we are doing should fit into that. So when we talk about green building, we're talking about we used to have like 3 or 4 main facets, like water efficiency, energy efficiency. We talk about indoor quality of air, but the framework is getting bigger. Now we're talking about water harvesting system, we're talking about landscaping, we're talking about parks, we're talking about a much bigger perspective. And do we need, for example, as Mrs. Zapata said, bigger office space if we are turning into a digitalization? But it also implies for us living sustainable, like household. We are no longer having big families. We are having very smaller families. So the size of the construction, the size of the building would eventually go in hand with our change, our dynamics in the society. So that side, the first thing that we need to understand is it costs sometimes more. I mean, most of the studies, the reviews on greening tells you that it costs somewhat between 0.5 to 12% more cost. But in operating cost, we have a gain on average of 37%. 37% in terms of electricity, in terms of energy, in terms of things that you have to do. And that is a very important component at individual level, household level, where people in a period where we have to go for savings. That is a very important tool. The second is about the society. That is where carbon and everything comes into the picture. And we also go up at macro level, that we are also going to reduce our energy import. So we have lots of benefits of saving on resources, on decreasing things that we are consuming unsustainably. But the maintenance and repairs would also be a major component. When we talk about green space, we're talking about that bigger picture. It creates additional jobs. It creates a different kind of job, which I think we are going to talk about this in a moment. So that green sector on one side is a key to drive the economy for recovery. And now if we turn it into the greener space, moving it into what is called the green transition, we can achieve what is called many benefits. We can contribute to the circular economy with a strategy of greening the construction from in the post-COVID period. So this is some of the benefits that I believe are important to mention on green building and green construction. That's over, Joya.
Thank you, Riyad. Well, you're right. First thing is the productivity of workers. That really, it makes an impact when you have in a green building. And also, you talked about investment in green buildings. This, I think, yes, it's true. Green buildings require a small extra investment, but in the long term, this translates into energy and water savings and CO2 emissions reductions. So, however, we need to create incentives to mobilize these small extra investments for green buildings. So we will be talking about that in the next few questions. Thank you. Vincent, over to you.
Thank you very much for this question. I think I will not repeat what my predecessor have said. I just want to emphasize on the fact that green economy recovery is equal to uh, should focus on a thinking again. Should focus on going back to basics. It should also put aside the GDP, consumption, because the more you consume, the better is your GDP, and the worse is your air pollution. So the green economy, the green economy has to put this in mind, that we need to rethink the way we design our homes. We need to go back to basic, learn from traditional building design, because those who have been there for centuries, they knew that building a certain way will also bring healthy condition in the housing. And that's why I'm talking about thinking. When you look at the way our modern economy was, we consume, we just build very fast. We have seen what happened in China in the real estate. They build very fast, but what type of material were they using? So we need to start looking at the lifestyle, the life cycle of any material that we are putting in place, that we want to use, because we want to build for sustainability, for a long terms. That's why it is very important to start rethinking what will happen after my building has, after 20 years, 40 years, when my building will be standing in the situation where the living condition has changed. If I need to renovate or to rebuild, what will happen with the building material? Can they be recovered, recycled? So those are the things that we need now to start thinking. I see a paradigm shift here, whereby we should not just say that, okay, we have a huge demand for buildings, let's build fast, and we focus on the quantity. We need to have the quality as well in mind. Now, looking at the African context, where we are working a lot in this context, I see the green economy recovery being a huge opportunity for the building sector in Africa, because it is estimated, and this is some of our funding from UN Habitat, that 75% of the buildings that will be standing in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa in 2050, are yet to be built. That means that we need to rethink about those buildings and make sure that those buildings has to be green. They have to really be low carbon, having low carbon footprint in mind, and they also need to learn from the COVID, and also, as my predecessor said, that even the building space will be now different from what we used to see. For example, one of the conditions during the COVID was the fact that, because we were talking about social distancing, which later on, because of the controversy that was on the social distancing, we start now talking about physical distancing. But this changing from social to physical distancing came very late, when everybody was talking about social distancing, because social distancing is actually saying that even within the family, you have to stay away from each other, which is not what we need to promote as when we are talking about inclusion. And that's why when we say physical distancing, it gives more sense. But again, for someone that is living in a very small apartment with a big family, this is not possible. So I think COVID has given us a lot of ideas, and we need to really put in place, and we need to put the greenhouse gas emission and also the environmental costs, as one of the condition of the costing of the building. In the past, the cost of the building was just look at the monetary cost. How much is this building? But today, more than ever, we should now start asking ourselves, what is the monetary cost of the building and what is the environmental cost of the building? If we use these two parameters, I think we can really talk about green economy, because we'll be looking at the implication. If, for example, I just give one example, when you go to Europe, you realize that most of the buildings that were done during the Second World War were all using burnt bricks, the metro, everything. So just imagine the amount of greenhouse gas emission that were emitted at that time. And we are now seeing the consequences of that. So we should start again integrating in the building sector the environmental cost, which is not there, is still not there. We are trying to have the rating system, the carbon footprint, but I still believe that these are still in the jargon, but they are not being applied on the ground. And we need to start seeing this thing applying even in the construction site, as well as in the operation of the building. Thank you.
Thank you, Vincent. You're very right to say that the environmental costs in buildings has to be accounted for. This is something that is definitely needed, and hopefully after this COVID pandemic, we can think about this seriously. Esther, on to you. Thank you.
Okay, I think in view of the time limit, I think all the speakers, said, I agree with most of them, but if I can succinctly summarize it, in our building sector, what we are promoting is also advancing net zero. And there are 3D that, make it easier for everyone to understand. Decarbonization is key. Okay, digitalization and innovation technology is very important. And then thirdly is about disclosure. So decarbonization, of course, in the World Green Building Council, we all advocate that by 2030, all new buildings should be net zero. And by 2050, including old building. So decarbonization is the way forward. Whether you are, from the day you start designing and to, the choice of materials, we are looking at not just scope 1 and 2, but also scope 3, embodied carbon, impact. So you have to start working with your, supply chain, looking at like, we have set target to use up to 80% now for our recycled steel in our project. So you really have to, deliberately set goals and targets, on how you design. And in fact, in our new device, we always use technology to help us to reduce heat gain from the day we look at how we design, how we orientate the building, how we look at, climate responsive, design, how we look at efficient building performance, energy performance, and smart and healthy building technology. There are a lot of ways we can do it now in terms of technology. And I'm sure you probably have heard of the prefabricated, pre-finished volumetric technology, building technology, which we have started using it since 2014. It helped us to raise productivity by 30 to 40%. And over a 3-year construction, it helped us save 50 over 1,000 man days and also reduce environmental impact. And all this, the third D is about disclosure. And I tend, I would think that in a more positive way, we are all living in a very transparent world. So you can't really, hide your crime, of using something, material that is not of high quality, not of like green. Whatever you declare, you better deliver. That is what the business is all about. Reputation is important, and we are all subject to a lot of scrutiny, especially for a listed company. In order to achieve LEED standard, green mark, and all that, you really have to, be able to withstand all the audit and the scrutiny of what is the material you use and what is your environmental impact. And we have all the policy posted on our website also, and human rights policy, green procurement policy, and a lot of practices are very transparent. I mean, at least in our part of the world. So I think if you talk about like national level, we have also set targets to green 80% of all our buildings in Singapore by 2030. So that means all buildings, whether old building, new building, or schools, or commercial building or homes, have to achieve green marks standard. So I think the decarbonization is key. Digitalization and technology will help us to move the needle to achieve all these set goals. And then of course you have to disclose, you have to be transparent, and that's why I think in a lot of stock exchanges have make it mandatory for sustainability reporting. So you have to report, and also you have to make sure that you provide evidence and subject to assurance. So I think these three will help to help our building sector to to build greener, cleaner, and also more sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you, Esther. That's great, especially about the decarbonization. I think this is a very important subject. It's about the World Green Building Council's Advancing Net Zero Global project. So this is a very, very interesting one, and we will be talking about this later on. I'm just looking at the time, and I'm just going to re-evaluate my questions because a lot of you have answered some of the questions here. So I'm going to look at a question here about the tools that would be available to give impetus to a green economic recovery. And I'm directing this to CDL and UN Habitat. So if we can start with you, Esther, what would be the tools available to give impetus to a green economic recovery?
Well, if you look at the big green building sector, of course, the green building standard is a really good benchmark. And of course, not every country, I mean, every country has probably their own green building, but some international green building standard are actually quite similar in terms of their requirement in energy efficiency is always key, whether LEED or green mark. And then even, China's 3 stars and BREEAM and all these putting efficiency, energy efficiency as one of the top priority. And of course, you also have water efficiency and also waste reduction. So all these are very, very clear, almost you can tick boxes to see where your building is achieving, whether you're on the green mark, gold level or platinum level. So I think the tool for green building, it is quite clear. And of course, you also look at like sustainable building materials. And there are actually, like, for example, wood, you have Nature Barcode, you have FSC, you have, more and more benchmark, international benchmark that you can look at how you guide you to, build greener and better. And of course, as a corporate, you also can look at like, how do you align with SDG, the UN Sustainable Development Goals, with 17 goals, 169 targets. A lot of targets can be quantified. And sustainability reporting, which I mentioned about, that definitely is a common language, a common platform that you can look at how green is your business and how, sustainable is your product. And also about strategy, also about how you can engage the whole value chain to, go to the same direction, that go green together and stay healthy together. So there are plenty of, reporting guideline, reporting standard, and of course there are global standard like rating standards, like for example the FTSE4Good Dow Jones and Sustainability Index, and MSCI, Vigil, you name it, we have it. GRESB, which is the Global Real Estate Sustainability benchmark, and CDP, which is the Carbon Disclosure, and all these are very important guidelines that whether developer or any businesses can refer to. GRI standard, the Global Reporting Initiative, SSB standard, all these can help companies to, work towards a low carbon economy and be contribute to a more sustainable world.
Thank you, Esther.
Yes.
I have a quick question about the tools that are available, especially in Singapore. Would there be any fiscal policy or any program or scheme that you can really highlight and tell us that how this contributes towards the green economic recovery, please? Thank you.
Yes, I think, well, under the Paris Agreement, every country will have to pledge, for the standard of like, what is your national goal, contribution to Paris Agreement. That will be a very good guidance. And I won't call it a tool, but more like a guidance, And of course, like I said, sustainability reporting is, mandatory now for listed company. So that actually will really provide a guide of what listed company is expected to, adopt a greener and more sustainable, not just about environmental, but also about social and governance as well. ESG always go hand in hand. And how can you make good business sense and financial sense of ESG? How do you connect it and future-proof your business with ESG sustainability practices and policies? So for Singapore, we set target for almost everything, including like green building I mentioned about. And of course, when you talk about using technologies and investment, you need funding. Every business will need funding. So sustainable financing, green financing is gaining traction in Asia and ASEAN region. And for Singapore Monetary Authority last year in September, we rolled out a $2 billion a green bond incentive program, and also to educate, to promote the the adoption of green financing. So there are a lot of policies that we could look at, and but I think most importantly, businesses also have to look at how you can be independent and also review your business model. You can't only live on grant and relief and all that. You must have a business model that can maintain profits, and otherwise if you have to close your business, and your employees will be the one who will suffer most. So how do you look at the triple bottom line, the planet, the people, and the profit? How do you maintain profitable but not at the expense of the planet, not at the expense of the community, adding purpose to your business, and come up with a very long-term sustainable business model that benefits your own business, your community, your stakeholder, and also the planet.
Thank you, Esther. That's great. I think you're right about the business model for different companies, because this is actually going to be this will tell us about the lasting transformation of the building sector. This will ensure a lasting transformation. So yes, I think the business model is definitely very important. Vincent, we'll move on to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joya, and thank you very much, Esther, for listing the tools that are available. Because without those tools, it will be difficult to not only enforce, but also will also be difficult to monitor the application of the green buildings principle in the construction. I just want to say that these tools that Esther has mentioned are more relevant in the advanced country where this is already happening. I mean, where, for example, Singapore has a problem of space, so it's also mandatory to sort of switch quickly because land is not there. But when you look at the rest of the world, and Africa in particular, you will realize that the tools that are being promoted by the World Green Building Council and even the UN, the sustainability tools in the construction sector, are being considered as a voluntary rather than mandatory. So I will start by saying that the first tool that is important to advance the green building in the economic, the post-economic recovery is the the policy tools. We need to have building code in place that integrate green building principle, because it has to start there. Most of the country with building code do not even have mention on green building. So this is one of the tools. And some of the countries, for example, we help 5 countries in East Africa to review their building code to integrate sort of energy and resource efficiency principle in their code. And we are already seeing in some places where government are putting some of the element mandatory. We have seen in Ghana, for example, whereby appliances, they have making it strictly that working a lot on labeling of appliances. So as to promote the adoption of appliances in the building sector that are energy efficient. So you need to have a proper regulatory framework in place that push the real estate to apply all whatever principles that are advocated by the green building, like passive building design principle, this thing. But this can only happen if they are included in the policy framework. The second tools that is also very important is the financial tools. We need to have financial incentive, financial stimulus, or rather financial framework whereby people are encouraged to switch to green procurement, to green adoption, to green building, when they are encouraged to do so through financing. It can also be through mortgages, green mortgages, whereby they say, okay, if you build a healthy home, you will not pay taxes. And we have seen it already happening in the, for example, the real estate sector, where government are telling real estates that are building social homes that we will reduce your taxes, provided that you have a minimum efficiency in energy, water, and material. The other points, the other tools, which is also very important, which is now being advocated by the Green Building Council, because basically we are seeing more and more green building council being established in Africa, is awareness, information, education, and also capacity building. This is something that was not there before. We need to sensitize the people, even the practitioner, on the importance of going back to basics, like I mentioned earlier on, the importance of green building. So awareness is very important. We need to educate the people. Education in the capacity building can be not only for students of architecture, but also for professionals that are already in the sector. Because you will all agree with me that most of the architects that are now in operation did not learn green building principle or sustainability principle when they were studying. And therefore, we need to sort of bring those elements, we need to bring them through continual professional development training, so that they are up to date on the trend, on the new trend. The other element, the other tools, which of course Esther mentioned, is about the monitoring of what is happening through the rating system. How do we sort of make sure that these things are happening, and also rewarding? Because when you start saying that my building is platinum and people look at you as someone, a champion of sustainability, And it is not only a pride for you, but it's also something that really help the country to help people to adopt, because everybody want to do better. Everybody want to be associated with the best. So the rating system is not just reducing the energy consumption, or rather reducing the electricity bill or water bill, but it's also a pride. Say that, yes, I'm not contributing, my carbon footprint is low compared to other. And lastly, I will also say that we need also to see how do we collect the data, because if you want to really convince people, you need to have evidence. We need to have proper tools to collect data on the all existing, or rather conducting auditing, because auditing is very important, so that we are able to convince people and say that those houses with poor energy audit or water audit, here is how they perform, and then that's why we want to change the way we want things to operate, and therefore we need to have data tool that help us to monitoring the existing, and also at the same time data element that can enforce decision maker to take proper policy so that they are convincing. So basically, those are the tools. Maybe you can call it as tools as a national level or macro level that need to be in place. That need to be a starting element, so that we can gradually see an adoption of rating system, and adoption of people start embracing this new sector that we are entering into it. In 2010, we organized here in Nairobi a conference on green building, sort of a conference that we wanted to promote the green building council creation in the continent, and there were less than 10 green building council in the whole Africa. Mauritius was one of the few of them, and today there are more than 25 green building council that has been established in Africa. So after 10 years, so you'll see that this is a very slow process, but I'm sure that now with the trends, things are also going to happen, but the policy need to follow. The government need to encourage, need to advocate for that, and they also need to have procurement system that encourage the adoption of greening, of green product. Thank you, back to you.
Thank you, Vincent. You rightly pointed out three important things: the policy, the financial, and the awareness and education. All right, Esther has to leave soon, so I will quickly just go to a question to her before she leaves. I just wanted to ask Esther, what would be the current enablers for a green economic recovery? I know we spoke about the tools, but what could be some of the quick stimulus packages or some enablers for this recovery? Can you tell us your opinion on that?
Okay, sure. Thank you for accommodating me, because I have another conference actually just started, I have to go. Yeah, okay. I think we all talk about, what are the, the tools, the guides and all that can help. And of course, there are always challenges, but the biggest challenges now is actually, I think, is the will of people. And of course, with the will, you will find ways to achieve things. And of course, you also need a collaboration and a partnership, and sharing the common goals is is very important. And just now, Mr. Vincent was talking about, yes, you need the whole value chain and you need the whole ecosystem to share the common goal and go together. In our building sector, of course, we look at, the regulators, the investors, the financier, the banker, the insurers, and also look at architect, designer, and supply chain, and also down the line, very important are the consumers, because now the millennials or even the Gen Z, they are the key driver to build a world that they want. So they are also getting very vocal. Consumerism, green consumerism will be a key driver moving forward. I mean, you have heard all the Greta and many Greta alike in different parts of the world. So in the past, we don't really see the green consumerism acting up so well, so visibly in Asia, at least, Yeah, so now you can really see them, and investor will be the key driver moving forward. Over the last 6 months, you can see that the whole world's ESG investment has, double or triple, and ESG indices and company have performed better. So in summary, companies with strong sustainability business model are considered as more sustainable, resilient in the long run, and are considered as better investment by investors. So money talks. If investors, are, expecting this, developer, builders, or any industry, manufacturer have to develop, have to deliver, the same. With that, you can break all the barriers. If there is no strong business case, it's very hard for, businesses to really go towards, contribute significantly to the overall green and sustainable economy. So I hope, I really thank you for having me and to share our humble experience, and we can stay in touch. And please pardon me for jumping to another one, because sustainability is really a hot topic. This whole month is crazy. The World Green Building Council and our own Singapore Green Building Council and BCA have a lot of conferences going on in discussion. Thank you very much, and thank you all the panelists for for sharing your thoughts. And pardon me for locking off now. Thank you so much, and to all the participants, stay well. Bye bye.
Thank you, very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, I think Esther, I'll just quickly summarize what Esther talked about. I think this is something that we have not touched on. It's consumerism. I think this is a very important topic. This is something that needs to change, and hopefully it will after the COVID pandemic. All right, we'll just go back to the question of for Riyadh on green jobs. So what are green jobs, and what are the opportunities that you see from the green jobs model? Maybe you can talk to us a little bit about the green jobs assessment that was done with ILO, and then maybe give us some, what would be the opportunities, future opportunities on that.
Yes, thanks for this question, Julia. The movement that the world is observing on environment, on also on other facets of development, including the pandemic. That movement for environment has been the objective of many institutions, and I'm talking about the United Nations Environmental Program that has been pioneering, that has been promoting the concept of green economy around the world. We have the International Labour Office, ILO, that over the 100 years have looked at employment, decent jobs, but the last 10 years, there has been a strong focus on the creation of green jobs as the transition to the green economy. And other institutions also are like following, have already established the contribution to the greening pathways, UNIDO or and many of the United Nations. And now currently we're talking about circular economy. We're talking about closing the system. And as I would mention my predecessor's comment that we don't, for example, thinking about what are we going to do with the waste after the construction building in 10 or in a couple of decades after. So our model is really flowed on how we are constructing our production and consumer system. So now in the transition now in trying to convert this to a sustainable economy, uh, people would talk about environment, talk about green. Things that come in mind is like that is directly connected to nature. We're talking about sectors like forestry, sectors like marine ecosystem, but that is one dimension, and there are other indirect dimensions that is connected to the environment. So the definition of greening or green economy, green sector, green industry, and then it comes to green jobs, does not necessarily mean something that is strictly directly connected to nature. It can be indirectly connected to nature. So that said, if we're talking about a sector like construction, we're talking about constructing building, we're talking about planners, green planners, we're talking about designers, we're talking about parks, we're talking about a number of conventional jobs. But when we look at the definition of this, the impact of these kind of activities, first, they are reducing the ecological risk compared to the conventional approach. They are contributing to lowering to lower carbon emission. So in the international movement, the international setup, these activities, even if it is they are expected to be conventionally structured. Now, when you're talking about greening and structuring, we are redefining conventional activities towards sustainability, and the jobs that are created inside them are called green jobs. So we can have an architect that is conventionally uh, making design for building, but when that architect is considering green dimensions, the green practices in the building architecture, that same person is called a green job, to differentiate that to the conventional approach. So that said, green jobs are found in all sectors of the economy. Are located in not only in nature-based activities like forestry, marine, sea, but they are also connected, they are also formed, created by other sectors, conventional sectors. Like construction is one of the major uh, sector that can contribute to the creation of green jobs. And when we're talking about construction, I always refer to the definition of that sector, that I'm not referring only to the system of national account definition of looking only at the phase of construction without referring to the processes, without referring to the raw materials, without referring to the supply chain. So the greening concept is not only when we are constructing, but it has the whole life cycle supply chain that is connected to that. So when we are greening that supply chain, we're greening the construction sector, what we are doing is we are just creating green jobs. We are creating jobs and employment that are geared toward sustainable practices. We are geared toward minimizing the ecological risk. And in the construction sector, you will agree with me that there are strong linkages to the other sectors, forward and backward. So when we are driving that, we are promoting that sector, we are creating green jobs. Everyone that is working in constructing a green building, having different skills, having different structure of employment, of jobs, would be classified as green jobs. But at the same time, the supply chain also, we use a planner. So now that planner, when he's looking at designing something that is green, would be called a green job in that planner industry, in that planner sector. So that said, there are a very what is called space of promoting that green job, and why that between inverted comma green jobs? It's because we cannot assume naturally or automatically that this will come forward. There is like the training, there is like the skill development, there is institutions that need to be aligned, there are supposed to be incentives, etc. So that's why by promoting real sectors like construction, that green jobs would accompany that real sectors, and the training and education would be as important to eventually promote that line, the supply chain to the construction, green construction. So that is the essence of the green jobs that we are promoting internationally with other institutions.
Okay, thank you, Riyad. So there is I have a question. There is a green jobs model that has been developed. So if we run that model, what opportunities would there be for Mauritius in terms of if we go for a green economic recovery? What would be the green jobs potential, output?
Yeah, so the green job modeling is in fact trying to it's a simulated model that we are developing with the International Labour Office. We have we are working that model with recent data. So the way that we use this model is to is to increase, for example, investment in a particular sector, and the model tells you how many direct jobs that would be associated with uh, that, that, that particular investment. But more important, there is an indirect jobs. Indirectly, there is a supply chain. And in many cases, when we're talking about greening, many of the jobs are connected inside the domestic economy. And promoting that green sectors and green jobs would also promote indirectly jobs in other sectors. So the model tells you how many jobs would be created, and that was the first model that we initiated in 2012. And it is construction was one of the sectors in that, and very very thin line of green construction at the time because it was still in the conceptual. But still today, the very great dimension of greening is still on infancy stage. We don't have like a very strong component of where we can say this is the component of green. But the model tells you if we input that into and how many jobs will be created. Now, the current model is going a little bit deeper in trying to find the skills that are required, broad category according to what is called the International Skill Code of the United Nations. So we have got like eight different levels, like the manager, middle manager, and then occupation, manual, etc. So in each of the sector, you would be having different structure of employment. So now the current model that we are working with the International Labour Office and the PAGE partners, we are trying to find out directly what would be the structure of employment in the construction sector and what would be the indirect jobs also in the indirectly connected to the construction sector. And that is the essence. And as I say, the multiplier effect is one of the highest in the construction sector. That is where we the way that we use it is, where do we put that money? We have like Mauritius is a well diversified economy, and we have like many industries. So if, for example, now we want, after the lockdown, after in the COVID period, we want to invest in a sector that has high multiplier, direct and indirect. We want to create as many jobs as possible. So the model tells you what is the multiplier effect by the different sectors, and it guides the policy makers, for example, to first is put money into that, you're going to create many jobs. And indirectly, you are going to also to increase jobs. So that kind of modeling helps us to better situate which sectors, which component of the sector we are expected to bring more money, to invest more money. So that is the green job assessment model of the International Labour Office.
Thank you, Riyadh. Thank you very much. And I think it's important that it's good that you mentioned about jobs through the supply chain. I think that's very important that we
I think Vincent has a question.
also take account of those
Yes.
particular jobs.
Yes, Joya, I just want to add on what Riyadh has been explaining, and perhaps bringing it a little bit down. For example, in the building sector, one of the area where we are looking at the creation of green job is, for example, using agricultural waste to produce building material or building component. And for example, we are seeing more and more farmer investing in bamboo growing, because with bamboo you can produce building component and avoid cutting down trees. And again, this is one of a sector that will create in future a lot of new jobs. A lot of new jobs. The other aspect is about recycling. Recycling not just for the building material, but also plastic. Because the rationale behind the green job is anything to do with low carbon, anything that is not producing emission, greenhouse gas emission. So any activity that are related to that are also defined as green job. Recycling, for example, plastic that has already been emit carbon, if now, and that has already been used, if you recycle it to produce another building component, we can actually characterize that as also a green job. The other element is also renewable energy technology. All new activity that are related to that, for example, solar home system, briquette, charcoal briquette, and biogas, and all these new energy system or options that are being taken into consideration. So those who are working in those sectors can be sort of associated to green job. And also, of course, I can go on, but we could also talk about the organic farming. This is a sector where more and more people want to eat food that come from organic sort of farming, and where they are not using pesticides, they are using natural element to control pests, and they are also sort of more environmentally friendly. So those are all the sector that the ILO has been advancing, and also the UN are also advancing, taking into consideration that if we invest in those sectors, we will reduce our footprint, but at the same time, we will also promote more healthy environment. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Vincent. That was great addition to the information that was provided by Riyadh. All right, I will go to the last question because I can see that we are coming closer to our ending time. I'm still waiting for questions from the audience. Please, if you have any questions, do put them through the chat feature. All right, so the last question is, what are the current barriers that are not allowing a transition to a green economic recovery? So what according to you, would be the barriers? I will start with Mrs. Apadu. Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah, so I think we've been having great conversation on all that can be done to recover the economy and to move on with greening of the construction sector. Maybe for Mauritius, I was thinking then, and maybe also other countries, the capacity to move on to green construction is there. Maybe awareness is at different levels. So in Mauritius, I think the awareness is really there, because this has been happening since quite a number of years now. We have already worked on, green building rating system, for example, for Mauritius. We have also worked on energy efficiency regulations, codes, and standards. Over the years, there have been different, versions where it has been more adapted to the reality of Mauritius. And the only thing maybe which is left to do now is the policy, is putting the structure in place, the institutional arrangements that are required. I think this is where we stand. And this is something, maybe if that could be pushed, if that could somehow be achieved, then of course it would be very easy for the country to fall into step with that. Because if you look at the professional capacity, if you look at the market capacity, it is all there. The only thing maybe is another thing, a barrier could be the labor market. Maybe we don't really, our market is our, how do you say, workers, the plumbers, the electricians, the masons, they still are not regulated. We are still in a kind of an informal setup. So this needs to be regulated. This is where maybe our shortcoming is, which is a barrier at the moment, because, we are trying to import labor to do our buildings, because we don't get good quality from the local laborers. So that is where maybe some systems need to be put in place. It's not that we don't have these people. They are there, but they need to be regulated, and they need to be trained. They need to be accompanied, so that the building sector could become more productive, and we could move into greening. I think that is a challenge for Mauritius, to get our labor force really regulated. And then now with the pandemic, we know how the situation is. Maybe we will not get so much foreign labor to come in. And in a way, it is a blessing, because I don't know if anybody else has experienced, but I feel that in the past 1 or 2 months, since the country has opened up, the local labor is being more conscientious in their work, which was not there before the pandemic situation. They would say yes, they would be coming in to work, and then you won't find them on the sites, or they would go at midday, and they would look for the money before time and things like that. But now, after the pandemic, we somehow experience that these people are also feeling, that we are in a situation that we need to change the way we function, and they are working more conscientiously. So maybe these are opportunities which we should take and provide them the proper training, and give them the proper opportunities, and guide them, so that our construction sector becomes more reliable.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Apadu. So if I can just summarize, according to you, you think that the skills are lacking in on building, on construction. So I'll let Riyad add to that. Or if he has any other comments on current barriers. Thank you.
Yes, Joya. I think I'll concur with the skills part. I mean, it's not only in Mauritius. I mean, or in all assessment, that has been done by international institutions. It's not only also in construction, but like recently in the renewable sector, energy efficiency sector, that was the same problem. Because we are talking about a different mindset. And as I said, it's a supply chain, and everyone that is involved will have to get into that greening process. So from the planner, the architect, to the use of raw materials, as Vincent said, and it goes on to the people that are working in the out at the production final production level. So all of these require different skills, and to build that skills, I mean, it doesn't come naturally. There are institutions that have to already structured courses, programs, and or upgrade existing. So there, and construction is one of the sector where many people are working. So how do you do that skilling, reskilling process? How to lead that dimension? It's an institutional framework that we require from the very top, and then it goes on to micro level in organization and enterprises that are going to ensure that process and the skilling is done. So the mindset is very, the vision is fine, that as I said, the theory is okay, we do have the necessary people, for example, we can do it, but it's a matter of how to structure it that is important. And the barriers, I would say, is the thing is about awareness at maybe a household level, at the societal level, because we would need, for example, to showcase particular building or cases that are energy efficient, that are cutting on cost. I give you the example of solar voltaic producing electricity some 10 years back, and the policy to attract people to produce electricity was very uncertain, and there has been a number of what is called uncertainty. But now we do have a number of people that are producing electricity. So you have cases, so, and it shows, you know, the future path of it, that, you know, if you do it like this, you're going to get that kind of benefit. And the third point that I would like also to mention is at the policy level, there is also things that are currently not well understood. And I would, for example, make this as clear in simple term, that when someone at individual level is going for a green building, and that person is incurring some kind of additional cost, obviously we get, that person is going to get some benefit. We understand that that is the benefit which is called private benefit. But we should understand that there is also a very strong social benefit that are attributed to green building. And that comes at societal level, and that comes at the economy level, and that comes at the international level, because our small behavior is contributing to lower carbon emission, is contributing to combat climate change. So that component gets ignored in the equation, and we leave it down. So that's why the policy, the fiscal policy, how do you structure it at the policy making level, and then the government level is very important. Green loans, for example, has been very much a driver for the renewable industry. So we can have lots of these different packages, awareness on one side, structuring on the other side, and the institutional framework. So these 4 or 5 elements are important in order to drive it. But the barriers are when they are not there. And it is not going to happen naturally unless some other forces would interact with the green greening practice and greening process.
Thank you, Riyad. Vincent?
Yes, thank you very much. I think my predecessor has already um, mentioned the majority of the barriers that are not allowing the wide adoption of uh, green building principle in the construction sector. I just want to add on that um, other elements that are more evident uh, in, in the Kenyan and African, sub-Saharan African context. The first barrier from my own observation is the issue of capacity. We still lack capacity. We lack experts in this sector. And therefore the need of training new architects so that they can come up having this element of sustainability as a starting point, as really the proper tools to transform the society. We are still seeing, when you look around, buildings that are designed copying building design from other countries because they look to be modern. They look glazing building. People still think that that is the way to go, but at the same time, these are very, very high intensive, energy intensive buildings. So issue of capacity is very important. For me, it's one of the top elements. The second element, I will say awareness. Of course, awareness is also a biggest barrier. In Vienna, for example, you have the municipality decided to have a one-stop office, information office for on greening all sectors. For example, buildings. You go there, you see a lot of elements. You are inspired when you are building or renovating your house. Of course, in Europe, retrofitting is the top sort of actions. There you get all the information, what is needed. I also see this in Switzerland. But in the rest of the world, these type of offices are not there. And also, I will jump on the policy. Of course, all government today are talking about net zero economy. They have also included in their national indeterminate contribution as low carbon economy as the way forward. But none of this is being enforced on the ground. We don't see this happening. Government are still buying very high intensive energy vehicle, fossil fuel vehicle, building as usual. So again, we need to have proper policy, but they also need to have procurement system that encourage the greening. So for me, that is also another barrier. And lastly, of course, not last, I still have two elements. I mean, the finance is also another barriers. People associate green building as very expensive because the initial cost is very high, and therefore this is a barrier, and we need to put in place financial mechanism, like Riyad mentioned, talk about the green mortgage. These are things that need to be there. Without that, people will not embrace the sector. And lastly, the production sector, the building production, the production of building material. We are still seeing the industry has not, I have not been seeing the greening of the industry of production of material. This is something that is very important. For example, if I want to build green today, I will have to move to several warehouse to look for particular material. I will move around, and maybe in the process I will ask myself, why am I doing so? So if the construction sector, the sort of the construction industry and the supply of building material could also start now availing the material, the green material in the market, I think we will be seeing really a transformation in the sector. This is not happening. We still see business as usual going on. So in summarize, capacity building, it's something we need to emphasize. Awareness, the political will is not enough. We need actions. We need to start seeing this thing. This action can start through procurement, whereby they decide that all procurement should have at least 75% of green component. This is not happening. We also want to start seeing the transformation in the industry, and then lastly, and not least, the financial. We need stimulus, we need incentive, we need tax incentive, we need grant. We need also to see tax waiver, and also in some places we need to also see demonstration project, because seeing is believing. So, and these are elements that we are not seeing happening in most of the country where we are working. We know in some places they are advanced, but in other places, or in some places, they have even law in place, but there is not enforcement. Not because they don't want to enforce, because even those people who are supposed to enforce do not even know what we are talking about. So again, this is what is happening. But of course, I'm very hopeful. That giving the example that the European countries are putting the Green Deal, the Green Deal that of their economy that they are putting in place, and also the fact that everybody is talking about building back but better. I think we will all see some radical transformation in this sector. Back to you.
Yes, thank you, Vincent. That's excellent. Yes, Barinder?
Yeah, I just wanted to add something here. You know, one thing also important is data. We don't have data on how construction processes happen. You know, mainly if you think of waste management in construction industry, you know, where all this waste gets dumped, nobody knows, and how much waste is created, nobody knows. There is so much possibility of reusing, recycling, but it is not done. So these kind of things, we need to have data, and we need to show how much pollution the construction sector is causing, because it is really contributing a lot to the carbon in the world, to the greenhouse gases. The transport sector is also contributing so much to the greenhouse gases. So I think it's really, really important that we set up some systems to collect data on how we construct and how we manage our waste, because a lot can be done in reducing, in reusing, and recycling construction products. Yeah, thank you.
That, yes, you're right about the data collection. And according to the World Green Building Council, buildings in construction sector account for 39% of energy-related CO2 emissions. So there's definitely need for data collection. And talking about that, we actually have a question from the audience, from the participants, that are asking some examples of data collection. You, Vincent, you mentioned about the importance of evidence-based policy. So could you give some examples of data collection that's taking place in the African region or elsewhere?
Yes, thank you. Here in Kenya, the National Construction Authority has been required by the government to conduct an assessment on alternative building material. And to do this, they started by collecting data so that they can actually have evidence and facts and see also the percentage of the type of building material that are being used in the construction sector and also in the housing sector, so that this data will now inform the new policy and also the new building standard. The reason why they needed to conduct this data assessment is because when you look at the building code, they are very restrictive on the type of building material you can use. Because of course, those building code were developed using building standard from the former colonial countries, and whereby the emphasis was put on rather expensive material or durable material. So for example, if you are building your house, you have to use stone and cement and steel. And these are the material that you can now have building permit. But the reality has shown that almost 90% of the houses are not using those materials. So to be able to review the building code and put and create new policies that are really in line with what is happening in the countries, they are conducting a data collection. At UN Habitat also, data collection and monitoring and statistics are also very, very important, because those are the real way you get instrument or rather information that allow you to really take decision. In fact, there is this say that say you cannot manage what you cannot count. So if you are not able to even know the number, I mean, the quantity, or rather the real facts of what is happening, you are not able to either manage or even taking some decision. So back to you, it's very important. In fact, even during my one of my intervention, I raised the issue of data. That is crucial. What is happening in the sector? We need to have the statistic clear, and then from there we need to make informed decision that will help to improve the situation, rather than imposing a solution that has worked somewhere else, and then we just assume that they are also going to work in another context where we have not yet conduct a baseline analysis to really understand what is going on. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Vincent. That's very true about the data collection. I think that's an important thing that needs to be done. We have data worldwide for the US and Europe, but we don't have for our developing countries here in Africa. That's definitely a need. Well, it seems that we've come up to our end, 11 o'clock. We're ending our webinar. Are there any other questions from the audience? I don't see any other questions. So I'd like to just summarize quickly what we've been talking about. So we've talked about a green economic recovery. What would be the tools? What would be the enablers, the barriers? And I think if I can just put down these keywords to everybody, talking about the financial tools, I think that's one. The business model, the consumerism, the awareness, the policy framework, and the capacity building. I think these are things that need to work together to be able to transition to a green economic recovery. So thank you very much to you all for your insights and for your great, information that you have provided, especially in your areas and in your geographic locations. So thank you so much for that. And we look forward to maybe having some more webinars in the future on the same topic or other topics related to green buildings. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Joya, for arranging it. And see you next.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Joya.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joya, for inviting me to this webinar. Thank you, my co-panelists, for very, very fruitful and experience sharing with us. I think we all need to share our different experience. Very important. Thank you very much.
Yes,
Bye-bye.
definitely. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank
Bye-bye.
you, audience,
Bye-bye.
for being
Bye.
present.
Thank you, everyone. All the best. And we will share the recording as many people couldn't make it today because of office hours. It was really like a fascinating discussion and very informative. I really enjoyed the discussion. And we will basically continue to connect, and we will also, I'm Tony from the Green Building Council of Mauritius. We'll keep on the discussions because it's very important. And there are lots of issues that were raised today also, but we will dig in also, and we probably call you again to join us. Zapadou, Vincent, Riyad, and thank you all for the participants who are here to take time of their day to be here. All the very best to all of you.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Tony. That was great. Okay. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you,
Have a
Tony.
great day.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.